We are right smack in the middle of December. We are building steam to get ready for the great celebration of Christmas. We're going through a teaching series that we're calling Better Christmas. Last year we called it the Advent Conspiracy, Advent being the Christmas, Christian word for Christmas that tells us that there's a new beginning. There is a new birth. And if you can believe it, each Sunday, as you see the three candles lit, we light a candle that guides us to a theme. We're already into the third Sunday of Advent. And so here we are as the church, as the people of God, preparing as best we can for the coming of Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world. Several years ago, this idea for this Advent conspiracy that we're following, this is a global campaign that churches have joined up, and it began with three pastors that came up in a search for trying to help their own families and their congregations celebrate the true meaning of Christmas. And these three friends who were pastors I think they were moaning and complaining about what Christmas and Advent had become and how it has missed the mark in so many of our hearts and our homes for what Christmas probably is supposed to be. They just like you, felt this tension of trying to prepare and proclaim and celebrate and worship Jesus while at the same time their families and their congregations were lost in shopping, sinking in financial debt, tired of buying gifts that people didn't want, and tired of receiving gifts that they really didn't need. And they were afraid that on Christmas Day, even if God were to show up, that they might just miss it in the midst of their own busy lives, focusing more on the consumerism, focusing more on the gifts. Exhausting. So they decided to try an experiment. And the question they asked was, what if people entered the story of the birth of Christ by focusing less on the consumerism aspect and focused more on giving relational gifts to their loved ones, things that matter, and using a little of the money that they did not spend to support maybe organizations that are helping people in need. What about locally? Maybe even globally. And so it was out of these questions that the Advent Conspiracy was born. And so we joined with this global movement last year, and we're continuing through it. We've talked so far about the way to have a better Christmas is to spend less. The number that keeps getting thrown out is that Americans, just at Christmas time, on Christmas, spend $450 billion, $450 billion. And there's no way to spend, America, $450 billion without putting some of that on credit cards, which doesn't honor our own values. It doesn't honor what Christmas is all about. So we talked about the way to have a better Christmas is to spend less. And week 2, we talked about the way to have a better Christmas is to give more. Give more of what counts. Give more of you. Give in ways that add meaning to people's lives. And today we're going to say this, that the way to have a better Christmas is to worship fully. Now, here at the Kirk of the Keys, we are this eclectic conglomeration of churches and people from all over the state, the country, the globe, and we've got many different church background experiences. And there are church words that are just a little bit loaded. I think worship is a word that is loaded. What does worship mean? So here's how I'd like to explain today's message. Christmas starts with Jesus. Christmas ends with Jesus. Advent, Christmas, is a season where love wins. where peace rules, where a king is celebrated with each breath that we take. Entering the Christmas story means entering into the season with a passion and a joy to worship Jesus to the fullest. And in order to get a view of what that might look like in our own lives, we're going to go back to Matthew chapter 2 and look at the first Christmas to see someone who worshiped fully. I invite you to read along. This is Matthew chapter 2, beginning in verse 1. Listen now for the word of the Lord. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." So secretly, Herod called the Magi and found out from them the exact time that the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for this child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I may also go and worship him." Now pause. 2 weeks ago, we walked through who King Herod was. And you remember that he was so paranoid, so jealous of people threatening his own reign, that if he thought someone was plotting a maneuver to get into power, he simply had that person killed. Herod had this paranoid fear that his own sons were rising up to overthrow him. And so he had his own sons killed. Herod was not into worshiping another ruler. So, when Herod says to the Magi, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him," Herod's intent obviously was to do what to Jesus? Kill him. After they had heard the king, the Magi went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Now, you and I are hardwired. We are built to worship. We're here on this planet to be loved by God and to love God. And until we can really accept that that's our purpose, is to be loved by God and to give love back to God, and nothing else that we will try and do really can ever make sense. But because we're all made and meant to worship something, and because all of us from time to time get off track, sometimes we end up worshiping and being devoted to other things above God. So the question that we will start with today is what or who do we worship during Advent? Now, for the long-time church goer, the right answer is Jesus. For the two people that said Jesus, thank you. The rest of you, I think, maybe we're just being honest. You know, what is the truthful answer? Does the way that we spend our time at Christmas, does the way that we spend our money at Christmas, does the way that we spend our energy really prove and display that we worship Jesus? I mean, it's very easy for us to say Christmas time is about worshiping Jesus. But the disconnect happens that we don't always know how to live that out, to flesh that out in our own lives, in our families, in our church. This is a hard question. You heard Mr. Hart say that he and Ms. Liz decided not to give gifts this Christmas. And if we're gonna, I know you're because you're gonna get Liz something, right? Yes. You got nowhere to go but up, my friend. In order to really look at my own life and go, what is important to me? What is my biggest value? In terms of my faith, in terms of Christmas, then it's a hard question for me too, because now I've got to look at my own finances. I've got to look at my own credit card. I've got to look at my own calendar and say, okay, well, what is really the most important thing during Christmas time? What do these things say is my biggest value? And there's this fear of maybe I'm doing it wrong. Maybe I'm doing Christmas wrong. You know who does not do Christmas wrong because of fear? Is children. Ask a child if they're excited about Christmas, you know, and if they're here in Sunday school, they're going to say, Jesus' birthday. But maybe before they've been indoctrinated with religious mantra, maybe that child would say, I'm excited because I asked for a shiny blue light that I want to ride on Christmas morning. The things that we desire are the things that we're devoted to. The things that we're most devoted to are the things that we worship. And so on this third Sunday in Advent, we need to be clear about what or who we're desiring, who it is that we're worshiping in our daily activities leading up to Christmas. Are we desiring above anything else? No, you know, here's the conditional clause, above anything else. Are we desiring the latest and the greatest, whatever the, you know, electronic gear, you know, something that's got a lowercase I in front of it. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the iPod. You know, that has a hot tech, maybe you need the iPod for Christmas. You know, is the thing that you desire for Christmas, you know, a new appliance, a new car, a new truck, jewelry, kitchen makeover. What does it mean to desire and worship Jesus during this time? In the gospel lesson that we read from Matthew this morning, we read about the Magi, who were scholars, who were astrologers. They were from Persia and Babylon, and they noticed a change in the star patterns in the night sky, which they understood as the sign of the birth of a new king of the Jews. So they began a long, arduous journey to Jerusalem, looking for this new king. And when they got to Jerusalem, they had the courage to seek an audience with the reigning power, King Herod, asking for directions to where the one true king was to be born so that they could worship him. And I don't think that the Magi knew about King Herod what we knew about King Herod. That he was ruthless, that he was paranoid, because if they did know, they probably would have avoided him. You see, historians have shown that King Herod was a brutal ruler who did everything he could to hold on to his power, even to the point, as I said, of executing members of his own family, even his own sons. A paranoid power like Herod did not tolerate rivals or competition to his throne, and he told the Magi to report back to him so that he could go and worship him. We know that that was not Herod's intent, and so God warned the Magi in a dream not to return to Herod. Now contrast the tyranny of King Herod's reign and the reign of all earthly powers, for that matter, with the inauguration of Jesus' kingdom. Many people expected Jesus to come as a military power, but instead of ruling by military power, or financial strength, or technological development, Jesus rules his kingdom with vulnerability, solidarity with the poor. He models self-sacrifice. Big contrast. And it's time for us to decide this Christmas which king will we worship. I would tell you that the Bible clearly tells us that Jesus Christ is the king worthy of our worship. But just like Herod, the reigning powers of this world will not give up their authority and their kingship so easily. If I were to ask you, what is the primary threat to Christianity in America today? I wonder what you might say. Maybe somebody would say, it's Islam. Maybe somebody would say, no, it's theological liberalism. Maybe somebody else would say, no, it's theological fundamentalism. According to the Advent conspiracy movement, the primary threat to true Christianity in America is not liberalism, is not fundamentalism, it is not Islam. It's radical consumerism. The fastest growing religion in the world is the religion of consumerism. Consumerism demands that you be satisfied. You never get enough in consumerism. You never hear a salesman say, there's great news. If you purchase this, this is the last one you'll ever need to buy. There's this constant dissatisfaction. You're going to need, a few months from now, you're going to need a new iPhone X, Y, Z. When it upgrades. The new iPod should be out in the spring. We're constantly searching for that one more thing that's going to satisfy us, but each time we trust the promise of our possessions, more barriers are raised between our true selves and God's plain command to love God above all things. It's not that we necessarily want to buy more. It's that we want something that we can't really buy. And if we're not careful, consumerism can also poison our relationship with God. Jesus becomes a commodity that we consume rather than a king who reigns. Maybe we want to try out Jesus for the 90-day trial period, like any other product. We were satisfied for the first 6 months, but then something happened and life got busy and we got sick and so-and-so was going through a hard time, and something about it just didn't seem to feed my needs. And now, maybe it's time to trade Jesus in. Like a leased car. Maybe to get something better. You see, we've been surrounded. We've grown up in this culture of consumerism. And so, the idea of fathoming a lasting relationship with Jesus is not something that we can really get our head around. When something in our world gets old, we get rid of it. We get something new. And so that's why during the weeks of Advent, we're invited through this teaching series to worship more fully. When the Magi finally came to the place where Jesus and his parents were living, they offered him gifts that cost them a lot. These men were not playing church. They weren't playing worship games that some of us fall into. Gifts of gold and precious spices nearly cost these Magi their lives, especially before Herod. And so in a similar fashion, our worship needs to be reborn. The Magi show us what can happen when somebody truly gets a glimpse of the majesty of King Jesus. The Magi traveled across the world to meet Jesus, to confront dominant world systems, to give their all for the one true King. And I wonder if we too could learn to worship like the wise men did, traveling beyond the boundaries of our own comfort zones, to bring gifts that matter, the gift of ourselves, our time, our energy, our lives, our money, and could we give it in a way that it brings the message of Jesus to the hungry, to the thirsty, to the sick, the people who need Jesus just as much as you and I. What might happen if at Christmas time throughout the year all of us worshiped God just like the Magi did? What transformation would occur as God's people moved beyond our own comfortability and began to more and more take steps so that we could love Jesus with our time, our attention, and our money? Now, before I end this sermon, because I want to be clear about this, here's what I'm definitely not saying this Christmas. I am not saying that it is bad for you to buy gifts this year. I'm not saying that you're a bad Christian if you bought a new TV on Black Friday. I'm not trying to replace the legalism of the marketplace with the legalism of religion. It's trading one legalism for another. What I am trying to do is to give each one of us a greater creativity, a greater imagination regarding how we can celebrate Christmas in a way that leads us to the truest meaning of Christmas. And maybe, Art will not be the only one who decides, I'm going to opt out of buying gifts. And instead, I'm going to bring everyone stone crabs. That's a good idea. Did I hear that right? I know that, if my two small children, who don't have a huge allowance, they actually don't have any allowance, and they don't know what that is, and neither do you. But I know this when they draw something, or when they make a craft for grandma or for grandpa, there's nothing that we could buy that would be more important to grandma and grandpa than that little craft. And there's a lesson in there that we can learn. That it's something that comes from us that we give to someone that is heartfelt, matters deeply to people that we care about. Last week we talked about giving more of our presence, spending time with people, making a commitment. Can I go on a walk with you this week? Can I go out to lunch with you this week? Here's and all of that's beautiful. And here's the thing that's not beautiful. Getting all bent out of shape this Christmas. Getting stressed out. So I'm not saying don't buy Christmas presents. I'm saying be creative. Be intelligent. Use your imagination. Protect what Christmas is, the Christmas spirit. Don't get in a fight with somebody because they want to say happy holidays. What are you going to win? You know what? Really? But if you model that here's what Christmas means to me, and I'm going to handle it a little bit differently, people are going to go, well, that's interesting. You didn't lose any of your hair during Christmas. You weren't as stressed out. You didn't have to pick up another job to pay for the credit card bill. What's going on there? And you can say, well, I decided I was going to spend less and give more and get my heart in the right place with my faith. And that directs my Christmas. Here's some guidelines, just 3 quick application points, and then we'll finish. In order to worship fully and have a better Christmas, I encourage you each day to take some personal time for worship. You and God. Set aside 5 minutes. Set aside 10 minutes. In worship, in solitude, in quiet, in a season that is full of noise, hurry, and busy, stepping away from the constant movement, the constant noise, is among the more life-changing decisions that you can make this week. Personal worship. Second one will be family worship. If you don't tell your children and your grandchildren the story of Christmas, who is? Please don't make me a assumption that they're going to learn it anywhere else. We're happy to enforce here what you ought to already be teaching at home. You know, maybe you get an Advent calendar and you explain why. Maybe you get an Advent wreath. Maybe just have a little prayer time. You know, something that you're thankful for. The gift, you know, we've been trying to work with our kids. What gift are you most excited to give this year? You know, so what gift are you most excited to give to Miss Claire? What gift are you most excited to give to, you know, Grandma? And just to get them in this shift, like, oh, it's not just about accumulating, it's about giving as well. So personal worship, family worship, and then I call this corporate worship, and I don't like the word corporate, and some of you don't either, but it means when we gather. When we gather as the people of God, there is something special and divine that happens. And so in order to encourage us, to give us that boost, to get through the next day, get through the next week, let's continue to meet each other so that we might grow, and so also so that we might encourage each other. If you're just coming in and you're sitting here and you're walking out afterwards and you're not really, you know, making an interaction with anybody else, I don't know that that's corporate worship. Now, if you take what's here and you say, okay, well, I'm going to discuss this with my family, now that's good. You know, but look around. We ought to be supporting each other. We ought to be helping each other. We ought to be giving each other a little boost in that. And there's no way to celebrate Christmas all by yourself. It's going to be helpful. We were created to be in relationship. We were created to be in family. We were created to be in church family. And so this Advent season, would you help me remember the point of all of everything that we're going to get all excited about and all that everyone's going to get excited about. The point of this is making it all about Jesus. In our worship, in our purchases, in our relationships, in our conversations, in everything that we do. And dear God, would you help us? Would you help us, our Heavenly Father, to worship Christ? And would you help us to worship Christ fully as we wait and as we prepare for the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ? Amen. We've been talking about ways to spend less, to give more, to worship fully.